Hi, seniors. Last week or 2 weeks ago, I came to your class and kind of got brainstormed with you some ideas for the Purim Shpiel coming up in March. And now it's time to vote on the ideas that we came up with. So here's what we got so far. I'm going to ask you at the end of this small short presentation to write your name on a voting sheet and rank your top three of the four choices from 1 to 3, and hopefully we'll come up with a good choice for all of us. So the idea number one is called the sign out sheet, and here's how it works, right? Mrs. Blum is new to school. She sees seniors leaving school left and right, high-fiving Pam, asking her what she wants from Chick-fil-A, and Pam being very lax and loose about the matter. Miss Blum is enraged and orders Pam to conduct the sign out in a very strict way. Pam quits. Mrs. Blum is on the lookout for a new Pam, puts out an ad in the TVT newspaper. There's a contest to see who can become the new Pam, and a student disguises themselves as the new Pam and becomes the new Pam. As the new Pam, the student overhears Mrs. Blum talking to Mr. Hartman, tells him to develop a new plan to make sure seniors are safe and accounted for during sign-outs. Mr. Hartman decides the best way to keep seniors from leaving is to campus is to get rid of them all for good or something like that. Okay, so that's number one. That's called sign out sheet Purim. Number two, the parking lot. School starts at 8:45, but there's a traffic jam until 11:30 because of all the new cars. Mrs. Quigley gets upset at Shalom and says, I was hired because I promised that we'd be a school of efficient parking. You've made me a laughingstock of the TVT community. You're fired, Shalom. Now the search is on for a new Shalom, and the person with the best way to solve the parking problem will win. The student disguises himself as Shalom and wins, becomes the new Shalom. As the new Shalom, this person learns that Mrs. Quigley turns to Mr. Hartman to solve the parking problem. And Mr. Hartman decides to get rid of all the people, everyone's parking license, get everyone's parking license revoked. And that way they can no longer drive to school. The new Shalom hears about this plans and must let Mrs. Quigley know about this dastardly deed. So it's not Mr. Kerber, it's Mr. Hartman. Okay. That's the parking lot Purim. Number three is Purim contest corruption. Miss Batley meets with one of the main judges for the Purim costume contest. She tries to bribe him or her. The judge says no. Mrs. Batley figures out a way to get that person fired. Mrs. Blum is now down one teacher and one Purim costume judge, so she needs now to find a new teacher and a new head judge for the Purim contest. The student disguises themselves as one of those teachers and wins the role. Shortly after, this new judge is approached by Miss Batley, who tries to influence this judge. Miss Batley leaves that conversation with an understanding that there's no way this judge can be bribed, so she decides to cancel all Purim excitement whatsoever by holding her AP and all APs on Purim Day. The new judge finds out about this and now needs to have the courage to let Mrs. Blum know. And then our last idea is Blum Bucks. Miss Blum comes to TVT and sees that Mr. Hartman prefers to punish kids for doing the wrong thing instead of rewarding kids for doing the right thing. So she fires Mr. Hartman, is now searching for a new upper school director who is good at rewarding kids for doing the right things. A TVT student decides to apply for the job. That student mentions the idea of Blum Bucks, and Mrs. Blum loves the ideas. The student gets the job. Mrs. Quigley is jealous of the Blum Bucks and starts her own reward system called Quig's Cash, which will undervalue the Blum Bucks. But people do not take it seriously, so she tries to get rid of anyone with the Blum Bucks. Can Mrs. Blum help make things right again? So those are kind of the main ideas. So rank your top three favorites as 1, 2, and 3. Sign out sheet Purim, parking lot Purim, contest corruption Purim, or Blum Buck Purim. Thanks so much. Write your name, hand these back to your teacher, and hopefully we'll be able to get an idea of what is our play, and maybe I can get a small group together to help me come up with some ideas for how to write it before winter break. Thanks, everyone.